So hello and welcome to the video. This is part 2 of a short series about how I go about planning and booking a cruise. When I've made a series of videos like this one before, I've tended to record all episodes at the same time. This is the first series where I haven't done that, so I've had the opportunity to finish and publish video 1. And I didn't think it ended up being that good. Sorry. Hard to explain what went wrong, but the viewing figures were poor and it ended up losing me 2 subscribers. That means 2 people watched my video and thought, this is so bad, I never want to watch another video from this guy ever again. But having said all of that, I do still recommend that you give video 1 a watch because it is the runway for this video. And there is a function on YouTube where you can actually speed up the playback, so feel free to deploy that little tip if you do watch part 1. So that video talked about how I look at itineraries, cruise lines and cruise ships when deciding which cruise to book. This video will cover the next 4 things you need to have in mind when progressing through the booking journey, and I will try to make it more energetic and more fun than video 1. So stick around! Hi, I'm Matt. Over the last 25 years I've travelled a lot. I've lived in 5 countries on 4 continents. I've flown over 1.3 million miles. I've visited over 100 countries, every American state, but I'm nowhere near done. So subscribe and perhaps you'll pick up some hacks, hints and tips to make your next trip better. One thing I'm not going to talk about in detail is the process of actually booking the cruise. You have 2 options, to book direct with the cruise line or to use a travel agent. I've always booked directly with the cruise line, mainly because I don't have a relationship with a travel agent. Most recently though, I've chosen to call to book. Doing so gives me greater confidence that everything will have been processed correctly. The cruise line's websites are pretty good, but on a couple of occasions odd things have happened when booking online, which has necessitated me calling to confirm that it's all gone through correctly anyway. From my limited experience, the price is going to be similar if you book directly or through an agent. And there are some specialist cruise agents that have excellent reputations. There may even be occasions when an agent will add value to your booking by indirectly sharing some of their commission with you. If you have a good agent that you'd recommend, feel free to leave their info in the comments below. That would be quite helpful, and I think there might be a dedicated video on that coming up in the future. But before you book, there are a few things that you do need to think about. Picking a specific itinerary is certainly a milestone, but you'll want to put some thought into these other dimensions before calling to book. Making off-the-hoof decisions on these things when on the phone with an agent may not produce the best results for you. The first of these, and item 3 on my list, is the cabin. Cruise lines like to call them staterooms, but that's an unnecessary extra word, so I'm going to call them cabins. Signing up also has an unnecessary extra word, so I much prefer subscribe. Please consider subscribing. Doing so has no cost and it just lets YouTube know that you enjoy this type of content. And while you're at it, give the like button a click as well. And leave me a comment too, I'd love to hear from you. In particular, is cruising so irrelevant to you that you would consider unsubscribing from my channel if I did more of this type of content? There are essentially 4 types of cabin on a cruise ship, all of which will have their own pros and cons. These 4 types might break out into perhaps 100 different cabin categories on some of the larger ships, but in essence there are 4 types of cabin to consider. The most expensive will be a suite. This may come with a grand piano, with its own dining room, perhaps a hot tub. If that's the sort of thing that you can afford, you probably don't really need my help, so have fun. The cheapest cabin is an interior. Probably not an option for the claustrophobic, but it's nowhere near as bad as you might think. If you're a sociable type that throws themselves into organised activities and loves being up on deck with your fellow cruisers, then you'll probably just use your cabin to wash and sleep, in which case an interior will be just as good for you as a suite. If you like your own space and time, then an interior may not be the best option. I've sailed in an interior cabin on several occasions and it's been great. There's always been a TV channel with the view from the bridge which keeps you connected with the outside world, and that's been fine. So balcony cabins have, well, balconies. The cabin itself will probably be fairly similar to the other cabin types, but it's the access to your own private exterior space that commands the price premium. These balconies may not be huge. You're not allowed to take pets on board anyway, but if you could, there probably wouldn't be room to swing your penguin on many of the balconies that I've had over the years. But the space is great for having a morning coffee, watching the sunset, or just sitting in your underpants reading a book, something which is frowned upon in the public spaces. The fourth type of cabin is an ocean view. Basically, this is an interior cabin with a window. This will give you some direct clue as to what time of day it is, but for me, I don't really see the point of them. If you need the outside, pay the money and get a balcony. If not, get an interior. As I mentioned, within these 4 cabin types, there could be as many as 100 specific cabin categories. Cabins on higher decks tend to cost more, as do cabins towards the centre of the ship. You'll also see cabins with obstructed views, perhaps ones that are rear facing, and some will connect to the next door room if you're travelling with a family. And finally, you might get a modest discount if you allow the cruise line to pick your cabin for you. I always pick my own cabin as I do like to know where I'm going to be, but it is an opportunity to save a few quid. I usually have the ship's deck plan to hand when selecting a cabin, and I recommend that you do the same. Being close to an elevator but not right next to one is usually my tactic. This is one area where talking to a travel agent may well help you out. Right, picking a cabin is certainly a milestone, and it probably does get a little bit easier from here on in. Item 4 on my list is drinks, and whether you should buy a drinks package. A lot of cruises these days have their drinks included, but if not, this can be a tricky subject. Some people will know that there is no way that they will drink enough to justify the cost of a package, so for them the decision is easy. A lot of people will not want to admit that they drink enough to warrant the purchase of a package. For them, this is more tricky. And some, like me, will know that they enjoy a drink or 3, so will buy the package without even really thinking about it. With a bit of Googling, you'll be able to find the menus from the specific ship you're considering, and the cost of the drinks package is quite easy to find. The onboard drinks will probably look pretty expensive, and the drinks per day number that will make the drinks package cost effective is usually 5, give or take. And remember, you're on holiday, so it's entirely plausible that you'll enjoy a glass of wine with lunch, maybe a beer by the pool in the afternoon, a pre-dinner G&T, another glass of wine with your dinner, and then a whiskey as a nightcap. But that's 5 drinks almost without even trying, which will probably make the drinks package more economic. And it will mean you can have a second beer in the afternoon without worrying about the extra cost. I always buy the drinks package. Doing so fixes the cost for me, and it avoids that unpleasant sticker shock you get on the last night of your cruise when your bill is slipped under your door. Not everything on the drinks menu will be covered by your particular package, but I tend to buy the drinks package that will cover everything. That almost certainly results in me drinking more on a cruise than I would do otherwise, but that's part of the fun of cruising for me, and I am on holiday after all. Number 5 on the list concerns other add-ons. Cruise lines are exceptional at finding ways of extracting more money from you when you're on your cruise. So if that experience is of interest to you, it will usually be more cost effective to pre-purchase that experience before you board. What do I mean? Well, almost every cruise ship these days offers specialty restaurants, where for a fee you can enjoy an elevated dining experience. That fee is often quite chunky and might actually be more than you'd be prepared to spend on a dinner on dry land. And remember, that fee is the increment you've already effectively paid for a very high quality dinner as part of your cruise fare. I rarely visit specialty restaurants, but I would do so if I was celebrating a special occasion or if there was a particular concept I was particularly keen to experience. When I have dined that way in the past, the food and service certainly has been elevated. And if good food, and lots of it, is your thing, then it may very well be an attractive option to pre-purchase. Indeed, on some cruises, the specialty restaurants are so popular, booking before you board is actually the only way of guaranteeing yourself a seat. In a similar vein, spa treatments, ships tours and organised activities such as wine tasting can all be pre-booked before you join the ship. Usually these will be cheaper if bought in advance, but occasionally something won't sell out, so the cruise ship might discount it a little bit when you're on board. That's not common, but you might not get the absolute best price by pre-purchasing, although if it's something you're very, very keen on doing, buying it ahead of time will guarantee you get to do it. One thing that surprises first-time cruisers is the frequency with which you will be photographed. A large cruise ship can have as many as 15 professional photographers on board, all of whom are trying to take your photograph as often as possible to then sell to you. They are professionals and their product is excellent, but they price them fully and they can be very expensive. Buying a package before boarding can therefore make sense, although it is still an awful lot of money. The demand is obviously there though. One final point is excursions. I'll talk in more detail about excursions in a future video, and right now it looks as if the only way of getting off a ship is going to be to take a cruise organised excursion, at least while this pandemic continues. As capacity may well be limited on these excursions, pre-buying them may well be the only way of guaranteeing you'll be able to get off, as well as possibly saving you some money. Right, the last thing, and item 6 to consider when booking, is actually something to consider just after you've booked. I have to give a hat tip to Gary Bembridge here for sharing this particular website. Check out his channel, Tips for Travellers. It really is a very, very good resource for cruising enthusiasts. That site is cruisewatch.com. If you book a cruise months in advance, you may very well secure it with a deposit and then have some time before the final balance is paid. If you then sign up on this site, sharing your cruise and your cabin type, it will notify you if the price drops. Then it's time to call the cruise line and ask for them to match this new reduced fare. Extremely British people may find that a deeply uncomfortable thing to do, but it can save you a lot of money. And if you pay the full price when booking, which you shouldn't, or if the final booking date has passed and you are fully paid up, you'll have far less leverage over the cruise company if the price does drop. But call them and try regardless. There is a slight chance that they'll give you some cash back, but they are more likely to give you something like an onboard credit to reflect the difference in price, which is still a win. So there you go, the last 4 things I think about when booking a cruise. There's a lot more that I could say, but the viewing figures on this first video suggest that I probably shouldn't be saying anything at all about cruising, so I'll leave it there. Like, comment and subscribe, you know the drill. Thanks for watching and I'll see you all again soon. Goodbye.